we are starting off today with a book review, and we're going to bring Jody right back up to the podium.
The book I chose is Light Up the Night, and there's flyers on your table. Light Up the Night. Every once in a while you come across a book that not only challenges what you believe, but also changes your entire perspective. International journalist and award-winning author Travis Lupic's latest offering, Light Up the Night, is one such book, detailing the opioid epidemic and the harm reduction movement sweeping North America. Light Up the Night is guaranteed to challenge your perspective on addiction just as it did mine. The rapidly growing overdose epidemic is rocketing the harm reduction movement into new territory, and in doing so, breaking down the walls of our current understanding of substance use and addiction. Lupic highlights how, as we progress beyond traditional abstinence-based recovery, which has centered around alcoholism since the 1940s, we are so often blinded by our self-righteousness and guided by historical beliefs that we fail to see the harm we cause. Throughout this story, we find Lupic not only asking tough questions, but setting off on a fact-finding safari, seeking out the right questions to ask. What follows is an intersecting storyline between two harm reduction advocates, Louise Vincent and Jess Tilley. Light Up the Night chronicles how harm reduction is vastly becoming a mainstay in American culture. There is a subtle shift in our thinking as the lights come on. For example, law enforcement officers now carry Narcan to treat overdose victims. The once tightly regulated overdose treatment Narcan is now available to anyone. Lupic's overt discussion on popular recovery programs flies in the face of anonymity, abstinence, and even tough love. Programs designed for guilt and powerlessness that completely ignore the preponderance of drug users that self-medicate to mask mental illness, childhood abuse, and other traumas. But change is hard, and an interesting opposition has risen up against harm reduction, doubling down on the failed war on drugs. Good Samaritan laws, so effective at reducing overdose deaths, have become hampered by drug-induced homicide laws. Where users were once granted immunity for possession while saving someone's life, they now face prosecution for homicide in the death of a friend or loved one. Staying one step ahead of the game, the Urban Survivors Union developed a do not prosecute directive for users to sign and keep on file in the event of their accidental overdose. Militant groups such as the Proud Boys openly oppose harm reduction with threats of violence. The command for strength and violence emanating from the former president himself, stating in 2018, if we don't get tougher on drug dealers, we are wasting our time. And that toughness includes death penalties. That reminds me of a story. So there's a man with a fox, a goose, and a bag of grain who comes to a river and needs to get them all across one at a time. You all know the story. He can't leave the goose with the fox because the fox will eat the goose. He can't leave the goose with the grain because the goose will eat the grain. So how do you get them all across? It's counterintuitive, but I assure you, there is a way to solve the problem without killing. We need metaphors, don't we? Simply stated, harm reduction is a practical set of principles and ideas aimed at reducing the negative consequences associated with substance use. The bottom line is keeping people alive. As some of you may recall, I had the honor of attending the virtual book launch for Light Up the Night. An insightful moment occurred during the conversation when Travis demonstrates something I believe strikes at the very heart of the matter. Prior to investigating the overdose epidemic, Travis was a staunch opponent to a particular aspect of harm reduction. an idea and a principle that seemed counterintuitive. But as new information came to light, Travis changed his point of view. I had a similar experience reading this book. Although different from that of Travis's, I believe these similar experiences punctuate how our old ways of thinking about addiction are not only antiquated, but deadly. Furthermore, changing one's point of view is not weakness. In fact, it's quite the opposite. It takes intellectual strength to change one's moral convictions, and to me, that is strength, a strength that will light up the night. Thank you.